And welcome to the podcast, Theatre Philadelphia, the podcast, TPTP. Is it sinking in yet? There have been 9 episodes so far. Our goal here is to dig into the community that we serve and find out more about what makes this community so magical. We are taking a trip to Wilma Theater today to talk to the new sole artistic director, Lindsay Smiling. We're going to learn a little bit about their journey getting into this community and getting to the place where they are now. And so we'll get into that. So I'm here with Lindsay Smiling. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's so great to be here and to finally be interviewed by you, Darn. I've been waiting all these years. Been forever. Come on, man.
I'm sure that there are a handful of people who are listening now who have heard me say at some point, I would very love to have a chat with you. I will reach out. And then as soon as I say that, something comes up and I've got like several other interviews to do, but I'm going to get there. I don't know if my goal is to interview everyone in the community, but I'm trying to get close.
There's a lot of people in there. It's growing by the day. So hats
Yeah.
off to you for even attempting to get through everybody.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up the end of the season, our theater season today is actually June 30th as we're recording. So this is the official last day of the theater season. We had a lot of great news. There's some great leadership changes, and you're a part of that conversation. I thought it'd be great to sit down and chat with you. But since it's the first time that we've sat together in a recording space, let's talk about Lindsay and your journey to how you became a part of Philadelphia's thriving theater community.
Oh man, that's a heck of a journey. Because the story's been out there, but I had no ambition to be anything remotely approaching an artistic director, much less even being in theater. Like going through high school, I didn't even do theater until I was in college, and just stumbled upon some acting classes and just kept taking classes because I thought they were interesting. Never really thought about a career until I came out to Philadelphia, when I decided to give it a go and go into grad school, which brought me to Temple University and got me, acquainted with the Philadelphia scene, with Philadelphia as a city. At that point, I was coming from Chicago, which is a bigger city, despite when I first arrived, people telling me, "What's it like being in the big city now?" That was the first thing. I was like, "I think Chicago's a little bit bigger," but
Yeah.
I fell in love with the city. It has a lot of similarities to where I grew up, and blue collar, a thriving art scene. And out of grad school, I my first acting gig was at the Wilma Theater with Yuri Ziska, having 5 lines in Resurrection Blues, 3 of them in Spanish, and then I got my equity card of Freedom Theater, and Walter Dallas, bless his soul, he said, "You got to go up to New York, and that's where all the parts are. That's where everything's happening." And so I took his advice and went up to New York right after that show. And
Hmm.
Blanca brought me back down to do another show at the Wilma. And I had this back and forth between Wilma and New York for a while. And then, spent a lot of time doing regional theater around the country and some work in New York. And then, I was yearning for a real sense of community, which is what I wasn't getting up in New York, and approach to the art that was really about serving the community. So I came back down to do a show, the Scottish play at the Wilma, and I had that sense. It's like, "Oh, this is actually feels like home to me." And then I decided to move back to Philadelphia, particularly to work at the Wilma, right when Blanca was holding these workshops for actors around the city and really investing in the artist community here. And I found that truly inspiring. And then eventually became one of the Hot House members when it was founded. And then, this whole transition of the pandemic and a cohort of artistic directors, and one stepped down, and I said, with Blanca retiring, somebody from the acting company should be in leadership. And so I found myself in the co-artistic director role with Morgan Green and Yuri Ernov. And then, finances are hard to have 3 leaders in an institution, particularly, in the situation we're in across the country for regional theaters. So they decided to move down to 1, and I was fortunate enough to make it through and have a lot of support behind me, including the 2 former artistic directors Yuri and Morgan both are supporting me, and a lot of people in that corner, which is you know the reason I moved down to Philadelphia. People have each other's back.
Yeah, absolutely. When we heard the announcement, it's funny sometimes when you hear announcements of leadership changes, they just seem so organic. Like, yeah, that works. That's a fit. It's not like a shock. You're like, you know, I think because your visibility has grown over the years, it just seems inevitable, for you to ultimately be in this position. And you put your time in, which is also great too. I think that's why when the community hears these changes, they're just so excited about them because yes, that's right. Ascend. I can't wait to see what you do. I was a part of that too. Last year, there was a couple of changes around, and, it's just really good to know that our community is that tight, that when they hear news like this, they immediately respond, and they're not shocked. They're just like, "This is right." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about several of the changes that have made, yours included, spearheading Dear Philadelphia, and then my classmate Amina Robinson from way back
Mhm.
in the day taking on Theater Horizon, which is
Uh-huh.
yeah, it feels like there's a bit of a changing of the guard around the community and leadership, and I'm excited what a new version of Philadelphia theater will look like in this next era.
Yeah. So before we explore like what you're thinking about moving forward, let's take a little bit of a step back to the pandemic and talk about this co-artistic directorship. Like what were your thoughts or what were the thoughts of like the Hot House when this conversation was going on? Like, what are we gonna do without Blanca? Blanca is, Wilma.
Well, initially, this cohort included Blanca. There
Mhm,
was kind of 4 actually, and there was this idea of Blanca mentoring each of them through each leading a season, then trading off, and then kinda taking a backseat to the lead artistic director. And Hot House, I think, was excited by it. We met with each of the prospective artistic directors when they were looking at who these people might be. Obviously, we knew James and Yuri had actually worked with us before on several projects, so they were kind of familiar faces and they made sense in a lot of way. And I think there was some excitement about some new influences that we could bring in, some new perspectives on theater making, and then when Blanca stepped away, she was such a big part of what we did in our hot house sessions, where the new artistic directors were wonderful, but weren't as didn't have the history of going through workshops of working with international artists that we had all been a part of, and so there was a little bit of trying to find each other's language with what hot house does and understanding what those sessions are. That it's not just rehearsal days; it's actually trying to grow artists in our hot house sessions. We're trying to develop our skills and make sure we are athletes when we approach the stage, and it's a place for us to work out and working on vocal and movement work, and just continually developing ourselves as artists. And so when James stepped away, and I totally understand why he did, and you know he's doing his thing, and I'm so appreciative of his devotion to Philadelphia theater at large, and his history with the Wilma. But I felt it was important, yeah, to step in for somebody from Hot House to step into leadership. If not me, I was like, everybody from Hot House should throw their name in the ring. And yeah, going through those COVID years was a little bit of like once Blanca left, was like, what is the identity of the Wilma now?
mhm.
And I think there's been a few versions of that over the last 3 or 4 years of coming out of the pandemic and coming back to live performances, and seeing whose kind of taste and whose aesthetics become prominent. And it's a wonderful thing to have. I'll say, only being in leadership in about a little over 3 years now, it's a lonely place. I go to these conferences and everybody's like, I don't know who to talk to, and we don't have a lot of people who are exactly our colleagues, and everybody has different institutions and different cultures. So it's a bit of, you're in the nexus of a lot of different. You're in the middle of a lot of different Venn diagrams. You're
Yeah.
kind of that point of both community and leadership, and people listen to you in a different way. They hear
Mhm.
words coming out of you different way. So, having 2 other people to, like, as sounding boards was a real blessing to, like, talk about decisions that need to be made and going over season planning and something you're excited by and have somebody really challenge a project you're excited by and force you to vocalize why this is a good idea for the theater was great. I mean, it was challenging at times, and there were moments where we had to hash it out, but also it was well vetted decisions. So,
Hmm.
that's the blessing. The downside is everything takes forever.
Yes.
You got to get
Yes.
everybody on the same page. So, and then disseminate the information. So that's the downside. But the decisions generally are well thought out. You know, we have to make our case on a daily basis.
Hmm. Yeah. I'd heard it over the years. They would say it's lonely at the top or it's lonely in the C-suite and so on. And, yeah, that could not be more true. I think people are very happy that you're in that seat because I think a lot of people don't wanna be in that seat, you know? They wanna see what you do, and they hope it's great and everything, but at the same time and people have a lot of opinions too, like, sorta like armchair quarterbacking and so on, but when you're sitting here, you're just kinda like, I need to bounce off somebody, but, like, everybody's busy, like, we're all working in the community, which also makes it hard to, like, gather and sort of sort of brain meld with people because they're trying to do their own thing, but it is interesting because you do think about the choice you're making is gonna change an entire organization for
Yeah.
better or for worse, and you have to make sure that you've given it a lot of thought.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like there's the interpersonal relationships and the decisions you make are can be very personal for one person, and but there's a larger picture that you have to keep in mind at the same time. At the same time, you really have to pay attention to the individuals and make sure people aren't getting lost in the shuffle, and it's a juggling act. And there's always somebody that's not happy. There's always people that aren't happy and yeah, there's a lot to listen to if you are, care about listening, which I do, and I care about listening to the community and from a lot of different perspectives. It's a lot to hold. So it is a spot where Blanca told me when I stepped into the co-artistic position and she's like, it's a very, very lonely place. And you don't really appreciate it until you're put in that position.
Yeah. Let's talk about this season because, it's interesting when you were saying, the kind of vibe that Wilma has under Blanca's leadership, will change as you have new leaders. But I'm interested to know like what sort of elements that are just like quintessentially Wilma that will always be there regardless of who the leader is. And like how do you think about maintaining those and keeping those as part of the organization?
Yeah, it's been this real question of like what makes a Wilma show, and it's hard to articulate what exactly it is, but I'll do my best for you. Because I have been thinking about it, like what drew me to the Wilma specifically, and there's this approach. Maybe it's Eastern European, but maybe it's something else of theater creation where nothing is straightforward. Nothing's didactic. It's really just about opening ourselves up and points to something larger than quotidian life, right? Even like there's not a lot of living room dramas that you're going to see on the Wilma stage. There's nothing like where you're just sitting in a a couch and two chairs and you're just like sitting and talking about life. It's really even if it is a play like that, the Wilma's design is going to make it so it's pointing to some larger conversation about the
Yeah.
world. So I'm trying to embrace that, and I mean I'm that's the stuff that excites me, stuff that is adventurous, that doesn't have any easy answers. You know, I just we finished the season with the America play, and I was doing a lot of research on Susan Lloyd Parks, and I think what drew me to that piece in particular is her, aversion to having any clear answers to a play. You ask her what a play's about, and she's like, I don't know, I hate that question. But that's the type of thing I do where you don't have an easy answer, where people have to have
Mhm.
conversation and wrestle with this issues. Is it this? Is it that? Does this mean X? Does this mean Z? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, people have to I wanted people to to be stirred and activated without telling them exactly what to do when they go out in you leave the theater. I want the shows to really wrestle with them, and even if it's not a comfortable feeling, it should activate you in some way that isn't clearly defined. For you, isn't like one of the quotes is like from Susan Laurie Parks's essays is like she's not going to tell you that slavery is bad. It's like, okay, great. Tell me something new. It's like, but to really unpack like what that does to the human psyche, to our culture, to our relationships, interpersonal, to our familiar relationships. So, what is our view of history? What is this greater narrative that we're living under? So I'm looking for these big kind of gestures, these big questions that don't have easy answers that hopefully leave the people leave the theater a bit unsatisfied. Be like, I mean, unsatisfied with like an answer. There's
Yeah.
something that there's something else to really think about and digest. So I mean, I think that's what art does. It opens you up and it kind of makes you question your preconceived notions of any given topic.
Yeah.
So so I hope that's the type of work I'm interested in doing. And I think that is in our the Wilma's history of plays that really open you up and not point to, I don't know, the awe of human experience, makes
I
you makes you wrestle with things.
I always say, when I walk out of a Wilma show, sometimes it leaves you thinking like, "What did I miss?" Like
Yeah.
because you have to like really unpack it for yourself. And I always say, seeing the show is just one part of the experience. It's like the walk home. It's the conversation you have with somebody about that you saw the show. All of that is allowing me to evolve my experience. And so I need a little time to kind of process what I've just experienced, but sometimes I walk out of the theater and I'm like, this
Mhm.
right here.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting how it works like that. And I know that for my interviews, I'm always asking someone, like, what do you hope an audience takes away from that? And I know that that's not really the right thing to say, but it's like, it's just their general, like, what are they taking away? And they hope that other people resonate with that too. But everybody's going to walk into the theater with whatever they brought in and they're gonna take out, you know what they take out because of what they brought into the experience.
Yeah, you said something that has been a real charge for me is when you walk out of the theater, particularly at the Wilma, I think has had a rich history of like people leaving like, I don't know, did I miss something? Did I get something? And there's can be a sense of alienation in that I really want to work on. Because I believe in the art in part of it, but I think there's another engagement that the theater can hold. And how do we hold conversation? How do we encourage that other next step
Mm,
and just leave it at, I didn't get it, but to activate people into why didn't I get this?
yeah.
Let me question my experience. Even if I didn't like it, let me wrestle with those things and ask why I didn't like it or what I had confusion about. And yeah, so I hope we could figure out ways to cultivate that in our audience because I think the work that we're doing is challenging or hopefully is challenging. And so to have resources or ancillary programming that helps us digest these challenging plays is something I'm really interested in.
Yeah. I always think it's, uh I always think it's I mean, it's a great opportunity for us as regional theaters. We can spend more time with a theater goer than say on Broadway. Like that show is like, we gotta get everybody out of here because we gotta
Uh,
reset. There's another show tonight, or something.
right.
But I think, you know, it has been a thought for me too, what sort of information can we provide ahead of time that gives people a little bit more food for thought? And what sort of conversations can we engage in before we actually get into the space so that the foundation is right for receiving everything we have to offer? And so those are always the things, but everybody is not looking for those things.
Yeah.
Everybody is not interested in every little element. And I'm like, I thrive and love all of that, but you can't get everybody. Sometimes, in a talk back discussion, if your play is already a long play, people aren't really thinking about, I'm going to stay for them to unpack it. But I want that information too. And so I'm always thinking about like, just like at a TV show or a movie, for example, and movies used to do like those behind the scenes, like a vignette or a featurette or something that might be on a premium channel or it's on the DVD, so that you can dig deeper and find more information about it. I know that everyone doesn't do that, but I think the ones who do that, they become super fans of your work.
Mhm.
And they're the ones who keep coming back, and they can vocally say whether they loved or hated a show. Like, "I don't like this show. I hope the next one moves me," or something like that, but they're still with you even though this show didn't really, grab.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to take big swings, right? And
Mhm.
hopefully people appreciate that as an institution. And so even if we miss a few times, they're appreciative of the effort that we're doing,
Yeah. Do you
not just
have
give them candy.
Yes, yes, very much. Do you have a favorite show or a show that you always go back to when somebody asks you this silly question?
I mean, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of I've been really fortunate. Particularly, I mean, I'm fortunate in my career, but fortunate at the Wilma as well. Narrowing the focus to Wilma shows. I mean, Jesus Off the A Train was a really kind of landmark shows early on in my career, but it kind of set me on my course. And then Kill Move Paradise, I always go back to like just one of the most meaningful experiences I've had on stage, and just with that group of actors and that material and that moment just felt uh yeah, and it was like this is we're doing something that means something. And Fat Ham was huge success, and like so having a part in originating those roles, or I cherish that I had that
Mhm.
opportunity. Pretty much all of James Imes' work, I've been lucky. I mean, Moonman Walk, and even over at Philadelphia Theatre Company most recently, the Wilderness Generation. His work is just fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to it's as soon as you start talking about one of them, you think about another one, like, "Oh my god, in that one, what
Yeah,
show was that?"
yeah,
Yeah, it's great to know that, that creativity, you know was born here, comes out of Philadelphia, and whatever experience that kinda culminated that allowed for that conversation to hit the page and then be presented here at the Wilma. It must have been great to see that, because of the pandemic, you did a digital production of it, where we got to see the work that had went into it, and then its star rises, like, I don't know, unexpectedly or just, like, this timeline was not particularly planned, but it happened. And then, you're getting all these accolades for a piece that was written for the Wilma.
yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. And then now in the leadership position, my board's like, well, what's the next Fat Ham? Like, I don't. That's just not how it
No.
works. We don't
Yes.
we don't know. We have no idea. But we're gonna do good art. And but yeah, it's wonderful that came out of
Yeah.
Philadelphia. So
I did ask James, "Is there a formula for a Pulitzer Prize winning play?" And he said no. There is, because I feel like people are asked that. There was a whole lot of great work that didn't rise to that level, but it was also still great and moving, and we're still talking about it too. So, these things don't mean what you think they mean. They might just mean that more people can see the rest of your work. Like, I've been constant here. This is one piece, but there's so many other conversations I was having on the stage.
yeah, I mean, just he's been writing for a minute before that
Mhm,
happened. And just even some knowledge about how that system works of getting a Pulitzer Prize is
mhm.
not everybody knows. So how many
Yeah,
other countless, amazing pieces of writing are out there that just haven't had the opportunity to have the stage, or to know what the process is to even
yeah.
rise to the top.
It just goes to show that I've been saying it has always taken a village.
Mhm.
There have to be people around you who understand what you're trying to do and can see an opportunity for you to rise and grow, and that you have to let them help you too, because otherwise you're trying to do it all on your own. You might get there, but it might take so much longer if you don't actually embrace the community around you to see how you can make these things happen.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
So now we're here. We're here at the end of the season, and the next season's yours.
Ooh, how about that?
So I know like there was a process of coming to Seoul, but were all of the co-artistic directors a part of planning this season that's coming up?
They were. Although I definitely feel like I have more fingerprints on this season than I did last. No, the last season, I also had, I was definitely pushing for Ms. Martha early on, and
Mhm.
then America Play afterwards. So like the last half of this past season, definitely had my fingerprints on it. But yeah, Horse Girl and Cow Daddy is it's the first show of this next season, which is a play that I workshopped actually at the O'Neill 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago to the day, almost. But it's a co-production with Soho Rep, and it's some representation that we haven't seen on stage at the Wilma. It's two trans actors, and it's rural Pennsylvania, and it's really talking about happiness and who gets to dictate what happiness is for you, and
Mm.
intellectualism versus simplicity. And yeah, it's a really just wonderful story that I'm excited to share with audiences. But that was a play that I was really gung ho on. I was like, if there's one thing we're going to do, is I think we're going to do this show. But at the same hand, we also had this project that Justin Jane put forth with Animal Farm, just like questions. Hey, Animal Farm feels very resonant right now, and resonant, and it is the foundational kind of show of the Wilma Theater. Let's take it on with Hot House in this next chapter. We didn't know, that the whole leadership change was going to happen in this next season, but we got the Pew funding for it, so that feels like it's birthed out of Hot House, and I definitely had a hand in pulling that forward from the Hot House's impulses, particularly Justin Jane's. And then we were looking for to continue this family programming,
Mhm.
and there was a few other shows on this table for this other show that we were going to produce. And The Little Prince was something that I floated by Yuri, and he's like, "I'm interested in Yuri in The Little Prince," and so that's why that is in the season, and Yuri's going to direct it, which I think is fantastic.
That's great.
And then we've our situation is what it is. We're working on a lot of presentations and kind of filling in the gaps. And the Beards is somebody that when I was doing the Scottish play back in, I think it was 2010 or 2011 with Rose, then John, but with Rose, they were just kind of getting this cabaret going with the Bearded Ladies, and so it feels really great that they're coming back in. And when this was kind of pitched to us, I was like, yes, bring it in. So I do feel like I have a lot of myself in that season, although we all kind of agreed to what it was going forward, but it definitely feels representational of some ideas and some inspiration, some yeses from me,
Yeah.
and some things that
Where do you where do you see our community what do you see in our community's future? Like, what is the view like from your perch?
I I'm hoping, or I guess my goal for it. I don't know if I see it yet, but my goal is I want to bring different people to the theater. I want to bring. I mean, that's kind of everybody's aspiration, but
Yeah.
I see a path forward through kind of community organization networks. We really had America Play and Half Got a Rainfall last year. We worked with different community partners and didn't just like say, hey, we've got this show that is relevant to you, but we actually invited them into the rehearsal room and they gave feedback on what we were doing. So felt like, and I was learning from what they were picking up from, the non-theater eye and how it was relevant to their organizations. What the Fathering Circle was for the American Play. And so there was some really wonderful light bulbs that came off with those relationships. There was ways that they could do this thing that I talked about of engaging community, because they all read the play and they're like, I don't understand this play at all. And then they came to the first rehearsal and like, oh, that's what this is. Then they came to the designer run and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, now I see even clearer. And then they came to the final dress and then opening and we're like, this is like amazing how took this journey with you. And so there were several access points for community to be engaged with, and I now feel like everybody that was part of that community organization has a connection to the Wilma, not just because of the production, but because of they were invited into the process. So
Hmm.
finding ways to engage with people, not just sell people theater,
Yeah.
but engage people with theater is how I want to feel like the theaters are places of communion
Hmm.
and so I'm hoping that can continue to exist. We also just had Art Now or Art Philly here with the What Now
What
Festival, and
now?
yeah,
Hmm.
and it was that was wonderful to see all the other people in here. So I'm looking at like how do we work with each other and not just kind of you know fight each other for
Yeah.
but how do we work with each other to cross promote each other's work? The James On's passage is a wonderful example of cross promotion, but work with other organizations. We should feel really connected with each other because I think it's real. It's in a city like Philadelphia. It's really easy to connect with people. We just don't do it as often as we can.
Yeah. I'd love to see more things like the James Imes Pass. Like, I thought that was so smart and so fun, and I was immediately like, "I gotta get one of those beanies."
Yeah.
It was just one of those things to just signify that you took part in that, and I do think, I kind of feel like the future is sort of like, you know, invitation. Like, people want to feel like they are
Yeah.
specifically, "We're doing this for you. We specifically want you to come." Like, I'm wondering if memberships are gonna be more of the future because, like, there's something about when you walk past a place that you're a member of, you
Mm.
feel like you belong and you're like, I'm not whatever they're doing, I wanna know what they're doing. I'm a member here, you know?
Mhm.
Like, you're a part of everything, and I think that's a little different than a subscription. A subscription is like, "Here are the shows I'm going to see on the particular dates that I plan to see them." But when you're a member of an organization, you're part of everything else the organization does, and so
Yeah.
now you're interested in the education initiatives. Now you're interested in the talkback discussions, and who else is using the space as well, you know, and how you're promoting them. And you're like, they're bringing these people in for me too, you know,
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
that opportunity. So because I know that that conversation has been big, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that. Like, we're just becoming members of various organizations so that we can stay in tune with them. But also, it's a way to just show that we're rooting for you. You know, like,
Yeah.
we're in your camp, you know. So but I'm interested to see what comes in our community. Like, I don't have a crystal ball either. I'm just optimistic. I just know that we've always produced great work, and I think, the more people get to see that, the better. The more people who know that, the better. We've had all this attention on the city this year, and I honestly think that this was a stellar season. I mean,
Yeah.
everything I've seen on stage, I've been like, "I just can't believe I'm floored by this too," you know? Like,
Yeah.
everything that's been going on, and so that's very positive and very inspiring.
Yeah. It's a great idea. The membership. Yeah. What does that mean? How does that work? I want to explore that with Lee Goldberg, our managing director. Yeah. There's been so much wonderful theater, and I do. Yeah, I think about like, well, how can we get just more people in the seats, not just to sell tickets, but like, yeah, like I said, engaged with these conversations. Yeah,
I think we need T-shirts, we need those pennants, those, foam hands.
yeah. I'm grateful for that you are in Theatre Philadelphia because the tough part is we're all working so hard to
Mhm.
just like keep our lights on in our own buildings, and which can feel like I'm just fighting for my theater, but we're all fighting for the theater in general. But yeah, the coordination and the scheduling meetings. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
put any meetings on the calendar.
Mhm. Absolutely. Which
That's
is
the barrier.
which is why I like this format. It's we can find a bit of time to just have a chat and kinda dig a little deeper because,
Yeah,
like I said, I do think people wanna find they wanna discover unique elements about these organizations and about the work that's going to the stage, and so if they can get that from a long form conversation, that would be great, you know? I want
yeah,
these to be here and have conversation. We plan to have many more conversations with the community because we are your biggest fans, and so
yeah. Yeah,
We're going to
yeah,
do everything we can to raise the visibility and have more people fall in love with the organization just like we do.
definitely.
But yeah, I mean, Lindsay, I'm so glad that we had this chance to talk. I can't believe it took this long. And this is like my 5th podcast, before I got you on to talk to you, but I'm very excited about the future of the Wilma. I can't wait for this season, and I hope that you will continue to have conversations with me as you grow into this role sole artistic director, but as the seasons keep going and we keep discovering more things about why our community has always been great and it's just getting even better. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. And
Absolutely. Yeah,
we
it's been a
are,
pleasure. Please reach out anytime to have a conversation.
yes, so we're all going to stay tuned for the great work coming out of Wilma Theater. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to wilmatheater.org. And that's theater spelled Theater to find out about Lindsay in the new artistic seat, the sole artistic seat, and then the work that continues to shine on the stage that is the Wilma Theater. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It was truly a pleasure.
My pleasure.